Tickle.
Guys, what's going on? You are listening to thisweekingeek.net's The Prototype, and while you're noticing a distinct lack of enthusiasm in my voice, that's because we in the PR industry call the situation highly fluid, and please stay tuned for details. So, I'm Mike the Birdman, and I'm joined by my compatriot, my brother, my best friend from the land of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada,
Alex the producer.
And of course, my compatriot on Loose Cannon, and this anime is...
It's Ken from This Anime, and everything's on fire.
Yes. So, as of we are recording this, we're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, and this is Switch Pre-Order to Eve. Or that's what we thought. So we had delayed this prototype after the Nintendo Direct that happened last week that revealed a lot of information about the Nintendo Switch 2, when pre-orders were going to come. And for about an hour or two, it was really nice. And everyone was really excited, though not so much about the price, but we'll get into that. And the situation, as I described, is highly fluid, volatile, and changing literally minute to minute. Check your favorite social media site for details. And we're going to talk about some good stuff, some bad stuff, and just kind of give our general opinions on what we saw at the Nintendo Switch Direct, but also some recent developments that have happened. We're not going to be speculating too much because we literally can't, because it's literally changing minute to minute. Like, I literally have a tab open on my phone, keeping an eye on this from reputable sources. Like, what is happening now? Yeah. And I have not seen a thing like this in the gaming industry in at least 10 years. In terms of news coverage, I can't think of anything. Like, maybe COVID?
The COVID delays where everything got announced for the same days, and then there were delays on, like, do you remember? Well, you weren't there. The lineups to get a ticket to have a chance to pre-order that I had to go through. Oh, right. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was the last person in line, and I was there like 3 hours before the store opened to get pre-order for the PS5. I was the second last person in line to get the Xbox, and this is after we had already had confirmation that we were getting software to review for those platforms, because of the pandemic there were no media consoles or loaners or anything. Sometimes companies will do that. Media can have a chance to either purchase ahead of time, or media gets a chance to have their hands on hardware that ahead of time. You'd use it for like a week and then you'd send it back, that sort of thing. There was nothing for Canada, like, at all. And we were like, well, we have, but wait, what? and we had our plans on how we were going to get everything. You secured your stuff online, and then my solution was to secure stuff in person, so that between us, hopefully somebody would have a console on day one. And if you remember, Mike, didn't you have to wait like 4 days to get yours in the mail?
Yeah, it was, I want to say it was my Xbox Series X was the one that was delayed. My PlayStation 5, I think, arrived the day after release, so it wasn't too bad, because I had to coordinate with you to come set this shit up for me. And
I had to come over 2 different times. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it was just such a pain in the ass. I mean, like, I like Nintendo, and in the last 2 years of the Switch's life cycle, I've become a much bigger fan of the system. Mostly because I had a Switch of mine actually die because I didn't turn it on that often. But
you had it in a dock, but you didn't realize your dock was unplugged, and there wasn't anything in particular that you were looking to play either for a reviewer. That I was mostly handling the reviews. It was either me or Ken, and you didn't realize that like 9 months or something had gone by without you turning it on.
Yeah, so now that I play my Switch fairly regularly, either for Pokemon Home or whatever, I use my Switch a fair chunk, and my wife Blair plays it a lot more than me because she plays a lot of those really cutesy fun games. But normally, a new Nintendo console is a reason to celebrate. Like, I remember this outlet, This Week in Geek, was one of the first outlets in Canada to get the entire Wii U launch library, and that's because Nintendo sent us a console, every single accessory, and every single game available at launch. Like, I had like a shit ton of things to review back then, and I was ready for launch day. I was under embargo. I had to sign like 10,000 documents, and it was a really cool time. And you know, this, now that me and Alex and you can have a fairly well-oiled machine for getting stuff out in a reasonably timely manner, this should be really exciting. The world needs a win right now. And we really thought the Switch 2 is going to be that win. And what we saw looks cool. And then the other shoe dropped. And it's been complicated, to say the least.
Pricing is, if you look at it from an inflationary standpoint, the technology involved and everything, it's not out of bounds. It's only out of bounds for the fact that it's not just inflation has gone up. It's not just that. It's inflation has gone up. You expect that from electronics. It's that most people's buying power hasn't gone up with the inflation. Basically, wages and costs of living haven't kept at pace with the inflation. So even though on paper, yada, 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 20 years ago, a console cost this, it doesn't matter. It's that
it doesn't matter.
People's rent has gone up significantly more than their pay in scale versus yada, yada. So because of that, it's a harder pill to swallow, but you look at the price and you go, okay, if I'm going to get 8 or 10 years out of this, Nintendo tends to err on the longer end. Somewhere between 7 and 9 years or so is what you're going to get before the life cycle completely ends for a console. And you're like, that's not bad. That's basically less than $100 a year. And you're going, okay, but then you see the tariff madness and pre-orders being pushed, and you don't know how things are working. You don't know what the final price is going to be.
I think cost more of games. People are mad more about the game price than they are about the console price.
Game prices, things that I would say the vast majority of consumers would assume would have been a pack-in or not a pack-in. We don't know. Things are in such fluid that we can't even really comment on it.
Yeah.
The opinions and discussions we would have had 3 or 4 days ago on this are totally in flux. So it's best to not even mention, other than the fact that there is apprehension about pricing and pre-orders that we don't know about yet. We won't know until Nintendo discusses it again. So with that out of the way, that is something to consider. We should probably jump into the fact that there were 2 Nintendo Directs within a couple of weeks of each other, which is super rare.
Literally 6 days apart.
Yeah, exactly. And we can sort of skim by, the Switch 1 Direct. I don't know, Burban, how much of it you watched. I think you watched some of it. You said you were catching up.
I'd watched some of it. I saw some of the titles, and we have like a group chat between us gamers at TWIG and friends of ours that are industry like-minded people. And I like 2 or 3 things out of this. I don't care. Yeah. It wasn't until the bigger one came out, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And that's the thing with me and Nintendo Directs. I'm going to presume you guys have noticed a pattern. I'm either, oh, that's fucking awesome, I'm really excited, there's like 10 things I like, awesome, or it's like, oh, there's 2 or 3 things I could have slept in.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's very hot or cold with you.
That's been the mantra of Nintendo Directs for the last couple years anyway.
Yeah, like
the last time I was super excited.
You are either a certain type of gamer and this Nintendo Direct is amazing, or you're the other type of gamer and this is a boring Direct.
In the last 5 years, there's been probably 2 Directs where it was super hype for me, and those were the very RPG heavy Directs that we had.
Yeah, I was going to say mine were the fighting game ones where they announced the Mario vs. Capcom collection. And I remember saying to you, I was like, I told you. Well, I guess I owe someone a favor of a certain proclivity, and I was very, very excited about it. Or, hey, here's a sequel we didn't see coming. Here's a remake. Like, here's some Pokemon news, and I was really excited. And I know for you with the RPG stuff, this is how you get me into RPGs. You're like, hey, Mike, you might like this. Like, there was like, I think the game you got me into last was like 13 Sentinels or something. And you got me into
which is again, that's more of that's that hybrid genre where it hooks you, right? It's the time travel narrative adventure, and then there's a little bit of that, just that strategy or RPG elements to it in the other gameplay, or how it got you into Persona.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember you sent me a game for review a couple years ago, and I was really into it for like months, so much so I bought these amiibo power-up cards off of eBay, and that was Fire Emblem. I think it wasn't Three Houses. It was the Dynasty Warriors one.
The Dynasty Warriors Three Houses, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I fucking loved that. That was so much fun. And yeah, like there are times where I actually can recall there was a time within recent memory where I would play nothing but my Switch for like 2 or 3 months. My Xbox would sit idle. My PlayStation would get occasional. And it's weird. I can actually track what am I playing or what has got my interest. Like, because I look at what consoles are turned on most often. How charged is my controller for that particular console? And now it's usually PlayStation, which is weird for me to say because it used to be Xbox. And then for a while, it was nothing but Switch stuff. So much so I went out and bought extra Joy-Cons. I literally bought a new set of Joy-Cons in the last 6 months. Well, guess I'm not going to need those anymore.
Well, you can use them in the new system.
That's true. Yes.
And I will say this: if you want the whole, controllers being charged thing. Mm-hmm. How about this? I don't know where either of my Nintendo Pro controllers are. I don't know where they are. God.
That sucks.
I literally keep a drawer of just controllers. So
I have to. They're probably in a bag somewhere that I moved before Christmas. But like I'm using the Super Nintendo or style 8-bit do controller on my Switch. Play games recently.
If I really want, I could just plug in my dongle into the Switch and play with my 8-bit do purple one that I have.
Yeah, which is perfect. But again, that tells you something. And before Xeno, when I put 60, 70 hours into that this past month, before that, the last time that my Switch in my bedroom it's hooked up to my TV was turned on was to play Kingdom Battle 2 years ago.
You might want to turn it on.
It was still charged. It still worked. The battery's still good. But since then, I had only played some indie games as well as Princess Peach for review on my OLED. So, like, again, very little play because there had been anything that was third party or that was multi-console hasn't had performance worth playing on Switch since probably 2021. It's just been very rough. First party games have been pretty good for the most part, but again, the same thing, Mike. And like for you, I know your gaming pattern, Mike. You were playing, either Pokemon or something on the Switch, and if you're not playing that, you're playing Kakarot on PlayStation.
Yep.
And before that, it was Far Cry 6, doing your dailies and whatnot. So
and now I'm doing that in Assassin's Creed Shadows. By the way, update: I've platinumed the game.
There you go, buddy.
Depression.
So there you go. So I will briefly go through these the stuff that was at the Nintendo Switch One Direct. We've talked about it previously that it was a C or a C plus. It was not a great direct. It was what you would expect for an end of console direct. And most of these things ended up being stuff that's going to be shown or at least getting upgrades at the Switch 2. But just a brief overview, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake, that's going to be awesome. Cool. And that's something that I think will play it'll play good on the Switch because it's the kind of game that is designed to work. It's going to play a lot better.
Nice.
Yeah. But what you're going to get is instead of getting 1080p 30, you're going to get 4K 60 if you play it on Switch 2. So it's going to be basically, it will look and play probably just as good as it does on PS5 because of the kind of game it is. Then there is a new game from the AI Somnium Files from
That actually looks kind of cool.
Spike
I mean, like,
Chunsoft. First game was cool. I reviewed it way back when the first one came out. I think 2018.
I own both the first and the second game on PC and haven't touched it yet, but it's on the list to eventually play.
Yeah, they're pretty much, now that a lot of companies aren't really, Spike Chunsoft isn't making a ton anymore. This is sort of like, that's their premier series right now.
Yeah, right now it's their series for sure.
And after that, we got Rider Remastered. That was my big surprise. Well, not big surprise. I was happy it was there. I wasn't expecting it at the Switch reveal. And that is the Devil Summoner SMT game that was on the PS2, which, funny thing, until like 2010 or 2011, maybe even 2012, you used to be able to pick that up, new copies of it at EB Games or GameStop, because it was one of like 5 or 6 titles that had very, very, very late second print runs. There were a few Atlas titles that had that for like $29. There were a few Atlas titles plus Final Fantasy X, and I think it was like Final Fantasy X. Weirdly, Final Fantasy 7 and 8 got print runs on PS1 in like 2012. And it was like in that little section they'd have at the desk where they'd have a few old games, but they were new. So that was always there. Shadow Labyrinth, they showed off. That's the Pac-Man game. They showed off a little more. That's going to be multi-console. Patapon 1+2 Replay. That's a
weird choice.
Sony. Well, they're Sony owned. It's a Sony Studios game. But they're being published by Namco, so they must have a deal for... I've noticed that any game that is going to multi-platform that is a Sony-owned IP that's from like the old Japan studio, that's getting licensed out to Namco, because I guess Japan studio doesn't exist.
They must have had some... Sony must have made some deal with them for publishing rights or something.
So I mean, cool. It's kind of fits the Switch aesthetic, I guess. Story of Seasons. Okay, Prime 4. They showed off a new trailer, but we'll get into more of that in the Switch 2 Direct. Disney Villains, Cursed Cafe. It's basically coffee talk, but the most I guess important aspect of this is that
it's Disney-ified coffee talk.
Yeah, and then I didn't know it was Canadian, but we can see that it's from a Toronto and Peterborough studio, Bloom Digital Media. So maybe we'll look into that, because I didn't know they existed.
And this is also specifically big because this is the first since Disney rebooted their Disney Interactive Initiative.
Yeah, it's called like Disney Games or something now instead, which is cool. It's the first time we've seen that logo. Witchbrook. This I forgot was announced like 4 or 5 years ago.
This looks kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the one that's like the super detailed pixel art, like Witch Academy game.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is I distinctly remember the name, and it's just like, it was like, we don't know when it's coming out, so out of sight, out of mind, and now we have a relative date.
It looks neat. I mean, if I can get a copy for review, and depending on when this comes out, I'll probably be in a low mood anyway, so maybe this will be like a whole vibe for me, which is fine. So it looks fun.
Sometimes you need a good cozy game, especially when like the seasons change and we all get mood affected.
Yeah, see, I have a feeling this will be a holiday release, which I think is the best move for it. So yeah, totally.
The Eternal Life of Goldman, we saw this announced at, was it the Ubisoft Forward event like a year ago? This is the game that is like an old man with a cane, but it plays like DuckTales.
Yeah, this one looks kind of neat, actually. This one, I think, might be a sleeper hit, personally.
Well, the best part here, it's a retail release. Like, it's going full retail. You can pre-order it. It's $29 Canadian. That makes, I think it's like 19 American.
Yeah, it's probably
that'll sell well.
It's got to be obviously a lower budgeted title, but it's like really good hand painted art.
The art sells the game, period. And then you see the DuckTales-ness of it, and you're just like, oh, super sold.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a long game. If it's like $30, sold. Rift of the Necrodancer. Cool.
I'm going to buy that later today because I forgot to buy it the day of.
Tamagotchi what did they say? Tamagotchi? How do they pronounce it?
Tamagotchi is what they kept
like,
saying, and everyone was ripping them for it.
Because I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure that my like 8-year-old brain knew it better.
Well,
Plaza.
it's so weird. Like, why would they not go back and recheck the pronouncer? I mean, you have the money and the resources. Just go back in the booth and do one more take, for fuck's sakes.
It's probably because they had some intern do it at Nintendo of America and just said, fuck it.
Also,
well, that's the thing. It sounds so good. Like, that's a professional voiceover artist. So whoever was the VO director on that just fell asleep at the switch. And I know that's such a small thing to quibble over, but that's such a big IP.
Yeah.
Well, and Tamagotchi, like I remember that's how Tamagotchi is how they would say it in the commercials on TV. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously how. Also, consider that the voice actor is, or the I guess the overdubber. It's very possible they weren't even born when they came out.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
So it's not their fault necessarily if nobody's going to correct them on the spot, right? Mm-hmm. If you didn't grow up with them, Pokemon Legends ZA, or as we would say ZA.
That's cool.
Sure,
we'll talk later.
yeah. Rhythm Heaven Groove, that was a surprise.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
That's didn't that originally start on the DS?
That was a DS. It might have even been GBA.
For some reason, I thought it was older, but
see, I got that confused with
Busta Groove or something.
Is it Elite Beat Agents?
Elite Beat Agents, which is the exact same team.
Yeah, so that looks fun. That was the one quirky thing we were looking for. You know, that we're always looking for a quirky game, and we haven't had one in a while, so that's there. They explained virtual game cards poorly.
Very poorly.
I still don't know what the hell's going on.
People are still goddamn confused.
Okay.
Mike included.
I will explain it to you very quickly, Mike. I've done a lot of reading on it. I even clarified a little bit with the Nintendo rep what the hell's going on. Currently, if you own 2 Switches, let's say you have one for yourself and one for a kid, or you just have 2 in your house.
Okay.
One is your primary for your account. One is a non-primary when you're logged in. If the one that is not the primary has to sign into the internet every single time that you want to load a game, unless that game is a physical card, right? Unless you have a physical game in it. But for all digital games, it has to check in, similar to what like Xbox or PlayStation does.
Okay.
But the primary account does not have to sign in. You only have to be connected to the net like once every 30 days. And then you can load whatever you want. This means that if you have multiple Nintendo Switches at home, or Switches 2s, and you have multiple kids, you can assign the rights of whatever console is primary to each game. So it's not like every game you own is primary only on one console. So if you want all of your puzzle games to be on your Switch Lite, you can go, that's the primary console for the puzzle games. And then I'll keep all of my bigger games that I want docked on this console, so that you can take one console on the go and it won't have to check in online, and the one at home won't have to check in online. And it also means that you can then share, if you have a family pass, like if you have a family account of Nintendo Online with, say, a couple parents, a couple kids, whatever, you can lend games to your family and they'll be able to play it on their profile. Because currently, kids can only play they can only play on their account on whatever console has that game as the primary.
Yeah.
So like if you have 2 consoles and the kid's primary is the other console, they can't play your game on that console if it's digital. So it's a way of basically controlling the rights for each individual game instead of all of them at a flat rate. And this is their solution for basically how you're able to transfer games to next gen.
Yeah.
While still retaining the rights.
This seems complicated for whatever reason.
It's actually simpler.
It's simpler than it used to be because here's the problem. When I moved my OLED to my primary, my OLED still sometimes will randomly forcibly connect to the internet just to check licensing and stuff.
Oh.
So now
Even
what
though
it,
it's
what it
still my
means is-
primary.
best way to describe it, Mike, is it used to be if you wanted to, let's say, lend a game to a family member or a friend or another console, you had to bring your entire collection with you.
Oh, okay.
Now you can go, I want this one game to go to that console, not the whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's rights on an individual level instead of rights for the whole. I know that's convoluted, but that's
really good.
It's good. It's actually better than what Xbox and
Anyone
Sony have.
does.
Yeah, this is the best rights management I have seen since the PS3. When the PS3 launched, if you remember, you could have your account on up to 5 consoles, and those 5 consoles could have the rights for all of your games.
Yeah, because I used to have that for my PlayStation Vita and my PlayStation Portable, so I could download my games that were PlayStation 1 classics, and they would all work across all those consoles. Now I get it.
It was 5 PS3s originally, then they reduced it to 3 PS3s and 2 Vitas, or one PSP and a Vita, and then they switched it down to just 2, and then it became 1, but because they're like, we don't want people sharing. But it used to be, for instance, my brother and I both had PS3s. We both had our own. We would install our profiles on both consoles, and then we could both play each other's games whenever we wanted. And that was their solution to a family. It used to be you could have multiple. Now nobody does that. Nobody lets you have more than one. And this is Nintendo's way of saying, well, we won't let you have more than one console have a primary for your account, but we will let you choose which of the consoles you own can have which games. So
and also give you and also allow sharing of digital games in a way that is essentially giving someone a demo, but the demo is the full game.
So in a family, you can have a family group, which I've actually invited you to just to see what it would be like, Mike. We'll have to double check and see if you can accept, but you can have up to 8 people in your family group, and in your family, you can lend games to them. And like, let's say I own a game. I'm the big RPG guy, and I'm suggesting one to you, and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I can lend it to you in my family group and say, you get to have this for 2 weeks, like as if you were renting it, and you have the full rights to use it for 2 weeks, and then after that, the rights revert back to me.
Oh, okay.
And you can do that up to 1 game per person for up to 8 people.
Yep.
So it's allowing game sharing, something that they never could do before with the way the rights were. So that's something that Microsoft and Xbox aren't doing, and it's something that Sony had maybe thought of doing at one point, and then clearly aren't anymore. So that's cool. And again, it took us this long to explain it, and it's still confusing. which tells you something. So anyway, moving on. Fantasy Life I, that's the game that looks like shit.
I mean, it's basically now that the Switch 2 is out in the wild, Level 5 can actually say, we can finally release our games because they ran like shit.
Exactly. We'll skip some of these other ones here. Saga Frontier 2 Remastered was shadow dropped, which is cool. That's the RPG that everybody remembers mostly for looking like pastel colors. That was probably the most memorable thing of it back in the day. Monument Valley 1 and 2 moved over to the Switch for the first time. Monument Valley 3 is coming in the summer. Those are puzzle logic sort of puzzle platformers.
And they were
the best way to put it.
If I remember correctly, they were originally Netflix exclusive up to a certain point.
Yeah, and then they went to like tablets.
Yeah, and then they went to tablets and whatnot, and now they're coming to consoles, I guess.
Everybody's Golf Hot Shots, which is confusing because it's what used to be just called Hot Shot. Yeah, it used to just be called Hot Shot Golf, and that's another one being published by Namco. Then the big surprise, I think, that got everybody pumped, which was Marvel Cosmic Invasion, a side-scrolling beat-em-up multiplayer tag team 90s style beat 'em up game.
Basically,
from
what looks to be a spiritual sequel to the X-Men arcade game from the 90s.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, with the ability, like every character has a you pick your two-player team and you can tag them in at any time. I think it's up to 4 players simultaneous online and couch co-op.
Yep.
And coming from Montreal's Tribute Games, which is awesome. Tomodachi Life.
Living the dream. I know.
Sure.
I have people in my group that love Tomodachi Life, but not my jam.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. We'll give it a try. Who knows what kind of features they're going to put into it? But yeah, then they announced at the very end, Nintendo Today, the mobile news app, which is cool for, I think, a lot of casual fans, is going to be honestly annoying for anybody in the media because
Oh my gosh, it has been a
keep,
pain in the ass.
Yeah. You're supposed to be able to log in on this app on your phone every day to look at news. Problem is, it used to be easier for media just to get it from a newsletter, and now it's anything that forces you to go to a different channel can be not great, and especially when it's not working. It's probably going to work. It didn't launch in the best format. We'll see how it goes from there. And
It's
then
I've had the app sometimes crash every time I try to open it, and then I have to open it.
Yeah, we know that Nintendo has not been the greatest at mobile apps, and it's just what it is. Then we waited, was it 5-6 days, and we had the Switch 2 reveal. And I mean, we had the reveal officially, but like the real reveal. So we don't need to go over prices because we really don't know what the prices are going to be right now. It's just know that we know it's coming. It's coming June 5th, which is a day before the Jeff Fest Summer Game Fest night. So we're going to be busy.
Yeah.
We're going to be busy because we know there's going to be a few indie shows before that. We're going to be picking up our consoles. We're going to be covering it, doing reviews. We're going to watch Summer Game Fest, and we're going to have whatever happens that week. There's probably going to be a Nintendo
We will
Direct.
probably be watching Summer Games Fest and playing our Switch 2s while doing that.
Yes, or at least setting it up or doing installations or doing something. We'll see. Or hopefully getting it. If you order it online, it might not be getting it in the mail till that day. So
Yeah.
we will see what happens there. Hardware features, we'll sort of just jump over it a little quickly here. 7.9 inches, so effectively an 8-inch screen, if just a little less. But it's 1080p, which is what people had been expecting. What people weren't expecting is that it is fully HDR capable with 120 FPS up to, with a fully variable refresh rate G-Sync screen.
I mean,
that is very surprising.
It is surprising, but it also kind of makes sense because most modern phones have that capability.
It's most modern phones that have that capability are like $900 or more expensive.
I mean, some of the more price sensitive phones still have like at least
they'll have a 90 hertz screen.
Yeah.
They might not have a 120, but they'll have a 90 hertz, but they'll also not be almost 8 inches. They'll usually be at the 6 inch. So that was a little surprising. Now, the trade-off is it's LCD and not OLED.
Yeah,
so,
but it's everything I've heard from the New York event, which as of this recording was over a week ago. Everything I've heard from the New York event, it is not like a standard LCD. It's because it is an HDR capable LCD.
And not just like fake HDR. It's a true HDR capable screen. So we'll have to see, seeing it on a YouTube video is one thing. We'll have to see when everybody gets it in their hands. In docked mode, it can do 4K 60 for select titles. You're going to probably expect a lot more titles to do 1440p. They did confirm 1440p output support. So if you hook this up to a monitor, in particular, like at your computer, where you're much more likely to get a 1440p monitor, it will support 1440p 120, but it will have to go into one of those color dithered modes. Like it'll have to do subsampling, which basically means don't expect great quality HDR if you're doing 1440p 120. But 1440p 60, you should be able to get full HDR, full color.
Yeah.
It's still, we're still unsure if you're going to get full color out of the 4K 60 HDR mode. We'll have to wait till like Digital Foundry or somebody does a teardown and look at that. But in portable mode, there is no question it will do full color at 120 HDR 1080p. We saw some games were confirmed to do 720p 120 in handheld, and at that screen size, you will not see a a visual degrade from 1080 to 720 if you're running pixels at that speed. So that'll be good. And of course, the variable refresh rate means that they've confirmed that games that would be normally harder to run on it, that maybe, they can hit 60, but they definitely can't hit 120, or maybe they can't quite hit 60. They've confirmed that they are supporting officially within their own APIs 40 hertz modes, which is divisible into the 120 easier. Basically, for anybody who's not technical, it means that the 40 frames per second can look almost as good, if not to the eye as good as 60, if you have a 120 hertz screen that you're using it in. So it's a good trade-off between going down to 30 where you can feel the motion blur, and then not being able to quite hit 60 where you have hitching and stuttering. It will eliminate that for a lot of games that support it. The Joy-Cons have been redesigned with magnetic attachments. The new C button that was talked about is a game chat button, which will be free until next year when it becomes part of the online package where you'll have to pay for online.
My guess is with that, they're going to see how many people actually use it, and they're either going to quietly keep it or they're going to sunset it. And with the Joy-Cons too, I've seen some people talk about how the controller's constructed. They're suggesting drift is likely still going to happen.
Yeah, they've already said they've already made an official statement. There's no Hall effect in there.
Yeah, they've just redesigned it to be better, in quotes.
Yes.
The chat feature is essential in that it's in the OS, but what I have questions about is if you don't pay for it, if I press that button, is it going to pop up telling me to pay, or is it going to just not do anything? I would prefer it not do anything.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Also, right now, it looks like it's going to be part of the cheap $20 tier for the online. We'll see if after that free trial is over, if that becomes just a regular perk, or if because the free trial is over, they raise, let's say $5 or something, the yearly fee. It's still like a quarter of the price of what you pay for PS Plus or anything, right? Yeah. But we'll see how it goes. But it's been dirt cheap because it's not been a very robust service. And now we're starting to get that. I will say this, as of today, they confirmed that there is not going to be a trophy or achievement system built in at the system level. It's going to be a game-by-game basis. And their refusal to do that is kind of confusing. Not that you need to have it.
They want games to be fun sort of thing? That's their ideal?
But every single other platform has it, which is what's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I like having...
Just watch. It'll be on whatever the next console is.
Like, I remember, I've even said on this show, I'm not a biggest fan of achievements or trophies. But that being said, like I mentioned earlier in the show with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I was like, I'm so close. Why don't I just try it? And this year alone, I've platinumed 2 games. I've platinumed Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and I've platinumed Assassin's Creed Shadows. And it's like, maybe I am, quote unquote, that good. It's nice to get that kind of feedback. It doesn't have to be super competitive. It's just nice to know.
It's that little extra, and sometimes I like to view what I've done for a game outside of the game. Yes, individually, Nintendo games sometimes have trophies or achievements within the games, but you have to boot into the game to see what they are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, not that it's not to brag or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, what have I done in that game? Before I even open the game, I want to be like, wait, where did I leave off? Oh, what am I missing something there? Yeah, you know what? I'll hop in. That's what it's there for. But they don't seem to get that. I don't know why, but that's one thing. Storage is 256 gigs of internal. It's going to use the micro SD express card, which is about 10 times faster than the memory cards that we had with the previous systems. That still puts it at about a third of the speed, maybe a quarter of the speed of the read writes that you get with the Xbox and the PlayStation. But again, 10 times faster. I'm not even joking. It's 10 times faster than what the Switch was.
Also,
because remember the Switch read write speeds was slower than the PlayStation 3. So
because even when you had it docked, it was running on USB 2.0, even though it's a 3.0 port.
Yeah. So, and the maximum read and write was roughly 60 megabytes per second. The maximum read rate on the PS3 at launch was 100. And if you got the Slim, which had the support for SSDs, you could get up to 400 or so read write out of it. And in comparison, the Switch 2 now is going to have a 900 meg read speed, 600 meg write speed, and that's about a tenth of what you get in the PlayStation 5, and about half of what you get in the Xbox Series console. So you'd be like, well, it's still not fast. It's so much faster. It is so much faster that you will feel a difference. I guarantee you, just even playing Switch 1 games in it.
I mean, thanks to the folks over at Capcom, the back end of their infrastructure is good. It's just now they need the front infrastructure to be good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think all these third-party companies were like, guys, you have to increase the speed. And that apparently it's using the same tech both in the Express cards and the actual Switch 2 carts, which how it works for backwards compatibility is micro SD Express has extra, if you look at the back of it, it has extra pads, like extra contact points, and that's where it detects if you're using the faster NAND speed or not. And for backwards compatibility, if you put in like an old Switch cart, it won't detect those pins, and then it just runs at the old speed. But so what that means is if you're running a Switch 1 game from a Switch 1 game cart, like a physical card, it will run at the same speed as it did on Switch 1 if you're running it right off of there in your Switch 2. If you download your Switch 1 games to your Switch 2 digitally, they'll run faster. So your digital library will be faster on Switch 2 than your physical library of your Switch 1 games were.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. That's sort of a fun little workaround. But anyway, 2 USB-C ports, one on the bottom, one on the top. The top one allows you to charge while you're in like tabletop mode. Also plug in a USB-C webcam, which they confirmed you don't have to buy theirs.
Good.
It will work with most USB-C cameras, they said. So I suspect...
Hey, Razer!
I was going to say, hey, Razer, hey, Logitech, hey, you know, whatever cheap one is out there.
I mean, we already know Hori is making some.
Yeah, Hori has a one that looks like a piranha plant. I suspect we're going to see a ton of cheap ones out there once we know which sensors work, right? We'll see how it goes. I would very much be surprised, and again, don't quote me, but I'd very much be surprised if Logitech, Razer, and Elgato ones don't work right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
They probably just do. And also, I would suspect that the Microsoft ones work too. It might be some of the off-brand ones that don't. We don't know, but we'll see. Wi-Fi 6, also confirmation with that. The Wi-Fi is about 7 or 8 times faster. They still haven't said if it's gigabit Ethernet, though, and nobody seems to have asked it. But I would like to know if it's gigabit Ethernet, great. If not, I want to know if I can use that top USB-C port to plug in a USB-C hub and then split it off for a camera and split it off for like a 2.5 gig connection. Because if you can, that's all I care about.
I think this is a good time to point this out. All of the architects behind this system are not old farts.
Yeah.
They're all in their like 30s or 40s.
Yeah, they're not the people in their 60s and 70s that don't really understand network connectivity. They're people that have grown up using the internet. So that's good. Backwards compatibility. Most Switch 1 titles, it has been confirmed that Switch 1 games are running in emulation. They are not natively supported. So that's why some games may not work 100%. They might need patches.
And they're in the process of going through.
Yeah.
There's like 100. There's like over 100 of them currently on the list, and they're in the process of going through each individual one and seeing, okay, can I play all these? Can I play throughout the entire game without
basically
any issues?
You should be able to expect every single Switch One game.
Every single first party is gonna work,
except for
Labo, yeah.
Because the Joy-Cons don't fit, and 2, I would expect Ring Fit Adventure not to work either, unless you're using the old hardware. And we could say that they announced Mario Kart World, which is 24-player online. It is... people were saying it's like Horizon. To me, I saw it, and all I could hear in my head was, "Take me down to the Paradise City."
Yeah,
like,
yep.
That's exactly... It's open world Mario Kart with exploration and stuff. We still haven't seen, everything you can explore, but
from what I can tell, we're gonna be able to unlock costumes via searching the world.
Yeah, and there's going to be like elimination modes. You could drive anywhere. You drive between the events. A lot of cool stuff there. Looks like a lot more animations involved. Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is the long rumored, like many years rumored, 3D platformer action Donkey Kong game. Looks awesome. Destructible world. What do you think? Anything like? Did you like that, Mike? What did you think about that when you saw it?
Red Faction Donkey Kong.
Yeah, that's exactly my immediate reaction.
Like, all right.
It was like Red Faction. I was like, when he's like jumping down, and barreling into the ground. I was like, oh man, who remembers that game series on Xbox that everybody seems to forget? Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
I do not.
I think Terry Crews was the spokesperson for it.
Oh, Crackdown.
Crackdown.
Yeah. Where you're jumping off buildings, hitting into the ground. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Kirby Air Riders, or Air Raiders, sorry. Sakurai is doing something that isn't Smash.
Well, he was also the original. He also did Kirby Air Ride.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's
Kirby's his baby.
Yeah. And this one might be more up your alley, Mike, because you like the Warriors, a new Hyrule Warriors game.
Yeah.
Which should run at it should run at like 60. It won't run at like 10 frames per second.
Yeah. Honestly, mine never ran that slow. I mean, I always found mine to run pretty okay.
The Hyrule it's Hyrule Warriors 1 that runs like ass.
Yeah. That's the joke. And 2 needed a patch or two, and I think if you played it portable, it didn't play very well. But I think you played it docked mostly, right, Mike?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be enhanced editions of Zelda and a whole bunch of others. We're not going to list them all, but they're either getting, in some cases, free enhancements, which is like patches. Some of them are going to be paid. I think it's 10 or 20. I think $10 US is what they're asking to upgrade.
Yeah.
And those ones will give
Pokemon is free.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
It needs to be. And then but you get like the Kirby game adds like a whole other world. They're adding little extras here and there. Of note, if you have the Nintendo Online Plus expansion, you will get the upgrades for the upgraded full version of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for free. You don't have to pay the $10 upgrade if you already own them and you have that subscription. And
I mean, like, as far as I can tell, the only Switch 2 edition that they've been promoting that doesn't have anything significantly different about it is Legend ZA, but also Legend ZA is a brand new game that's coming out this year.
Yeah, and it's probably just going to be higher resolution, high and stable frame rate.
Yeah. I would say it'll be it'll actually run at 1080p and not drop frames.
Oh, and because literally like 10 times faster storage, it'll probably stream the data in faster, a little less pop in as you're running around.
Yeah.
Beyond that, third party stuff, Elden Ring was announced, and it looks
that was
Ringy.
Widely rumored. It's probably running 720p 30.
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII remake. I mean,
that's cool.
Sure, that's cool. It's interesting. Nintendo finally gets their Final Fantasy VII.
I mean, they
It's
already
just-
had the OG 7 on Switch.
Yeah, but still, it still feels like a get.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk
Cyberpunk is a
2077 working better than it did when I played it on goddamn Xbox Series X at launch.
I mean, and here's the good thing: CD Projekt is spending the money to get a 64 gigabyte cart for the physical edition. So
yeah, they're fitting everything on the cart, including Phantom Liberty expansion, which on PC and Xbox is 105 gigs. On PlayStation, it's like 85 gigs. They're fitting it down to 64. They've also confirmed that they do have a high-speed texture compression, decompression built into the hardware. So it has a similar thing to what the PlayStation has. So you are going to see some of these games shrunk down a lot more than you'd expect.
yes.
Street Fighter 6,
and
Mike.
they've also leaked some of the file sizes for some of the Nintendo first parties.
That's
leaked
true.
as well. And they're tiny.
Some of the yeah, like Mario Kart's the largest because it has the most stuff in it. But yeah, Mike, Street Fighter 6.
I'm not
on
surprised.
Switch.
I mean, I'm looking forward more. Like, I think there's rumored they're going to do Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which I can't see why they wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, and it's probably important to have Street Fighter on the console, because I have fight sticks. Like, I have those like 8-bit do sticks, and I've modified them. And I just literally bought a fight stick in the last 6 months. So I'd be really fucking annoyed if that didn't work with my Switch too, but evidently it's going to.
They did say all Switch 1 controllers will work with Switch 2. They just won't have the enhanced version of that. Yeah, the chat button or the enhanced haptics. The newer one, they have like a newer rumble motor system. It'll still work with everything previous.
Now, if I was Nintendo, and if I really wanted to fucking blow someone's socks off, I would be contacting NetherRealm Studios, Warner Brothers. And I'd say, look, we want an exclusive. Well, what do you want? We want the entire Mortal Kombat collection exclusive to our console. And I'm talking Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, Ultimate 3, 4, 5, Deception, Armageddon.
Like 1 through Armageddon, maybe? Just get them all?
Yeah, the entire collection. And if they want a really fucking wow my ass, Mortal Kombat 9 through Mortal Kombat 12, the reboot trilogy, exclusive to the Switch 2 for 6 months to a year, and all the DLC, all the characters. I could see them not including characters like Freddy Krueger because he was exclusive to the PlayStation, and Kratos. Okay, willing to let those go. But you know what? You do that, it's not going to sell a lot of systems, but it's going to move some.
How about you do, what is it, 1 through Armageddon, and you call it like, Earthrealm,
the classic trilogy,
the
classic collection, and whatnot.
Because it's been rumored
something about like the original Earthrealm timeline. You work a way of having that in the title.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hades 2. I mean, that's kind of expected.
Okay, so now here's some stuff that came out afterwards during the Treehouse stuff, as well as some other stuff Nintendo has posted. Hades 2 will be console exclusive to Switch 2, at least probably for 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
And that will probably come out in September when 1.0 comes out.
Okay, and then
that's the idea.
Silk Song was shown for 2 seconds. Saying 2025.
I'll believe it when it's in my hands.
Yeah, there were a few others that sort of skimmed through there. The big surprise, I think, was Duskbloods, which everybody thought for a second might have been
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne 2, until they realized. I think it's a multiplayer, right? It's a
PvP VE, so it's similar to Night Rain.
Okay, so yeah, I mean that could be interesting. We'll see how that goes.
That is exclusive to Switch, by the way, at least for now.
Yeah, we'll see how if it really stays that way. And that was pretty much, that was it. They sort of rounded up. It was a lot that happened.
They showed like 50 games.
A lot of it is just like enhanced versions or things.
Sure, but 50 games is a lot.
But I do think it's a solid start. It's going to be pricey to get things, not just, the fact that we'll need controllers and memory cards and everything. The games, we'll see how the pricing works. Luckily, most of us have a decent number of games that are either getting free enhancements or will just play better in general on the Switch too. So
Yeah.
there's that. I'm happy that that's a little bigger for my big hands to hold.
I play in
I'll
dock
probably
mode
still-
anyway.
Yeah, I'm probably still going to get a Pro Controller, and the Pro Controller has some back buttons programmable built in, which is awesome.
Which
you
is
can-
about fucking time Nintendo did that.
Yeah, and
I mean,
means,
if
Mike, you could-
if a $20 Hori controller can have back buttons, Nintendo can put back buttons.
exactly, and Mike, you can then program some macros for your fighting games, and
Yeah, exactly. Like the one game we didn't really talk about, but I'm excited for, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the wheelchair basketball game. That looks cool because I like the fact that it's taking advantage of the advanced controller options using the Joy-Cons, like to simulate a wheelchair push. I would be very curious to know how many members of the dev team were from the accessibility community. I would imagine quite a few, because I can't imagine that game being developed in a bubble.
Also,
I was saving it for last for you. It's Dragon Drive.
Yeah,
'cause
that's
I
it.
figured
That
you'd
looks
want to talk
really
about it.
Yeah, like
also, it's been confirmed that the mouse controls you can use your legs.
Interesting. Like, I'm very curious to see how well this game will be received by the accessibility consultants in the disability community who are involved in games journalism, and more people who suffer from a physical disability. And I'm not trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Denigrate anybody else who has a disability, but I want to hear specifically, if you're in a chair like me, your opinion. I really want to hear about a person who may be blind or something or whatever. Not so much. And again, not because your opinion doesn't matter, but I need the lived experience to know, what do you think?
I've seen some people, making ignorant comments online being like, this game looks like a slow version of Rocket League. It's like, that's the point. It's a deliberate pace because it's fun because there's strategy involved, but it's also a way of thinking differently about the world around you.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I was not blown away by the presentation of it, like the backgrounds and the color. It seemed like almost like we were looking at an alpha build, even though it's ready to go at launch.
Yeah.
I would hope that it gets a little more colorful. But again, we're not sure if that's just how we saw it or if that's the presentation they're going for in the first place. It looks very interesting. They did the Treehouse Live for it, and they showed how you can break one break and it turns you to the side. It's very, very logical in how it's presented, and I think that there's going to be a lot of strategy involved in playing it. And like Ken said, Mike, you can play with it on a surface with the mouse, like with the two controllers, like a mouse, or you can play with it on your lap, or if you're laying down, you could probably roll it on your stomach. It's designed in such a way that you can tell it apparently that, hey, I'm playing on a flat surface, or you can tell it I'm playing it on not a flat surface, and it will adjust its own sensitivity.
Yeah, because most of my gaming is done from my bed, just the way my particular setup is. I do have a desk in front of me, but sometimes I'll use a lap desk, place that in front of me, or a pillow, and I use that for my fighting games and whatever else. So yeah, this will be very interesting. Like I said, this is the game.
How about we get meta, Mike, and we have Birdman sitting in his wheelchair using his legs as the motion for the wheelchair game.
See, I was gonna say this off air, but if you really wanted to push the accessibility angle with Nintendo, you'd be like, we have a guy in a wheelchair and he's an accessibility consultant, so maybe you should give us a console, because this is a very interesting thing for the disability community. Because if games like this are being actively developed, and this was shown in a very widely seen Nintendo Direct, that suggests to me, from an industry standpoint, this is probably not the only game of this type in development, because now accessibility is being looked at as a serious gaming market.
Well, Do you remember like the first thing with some of the co-streamers were popping up mentioning right away? They're like, "Oh, this is really cool for accessibility." There were a lot of people saying that, and the other thing people were saying is, "What's it called? Legs?" And I thought, like, it's a funny joke. Obviously,
Well,
you know,
people were joking about the sequel to Arms being announced and calling it
now.
Legs.
The only thing I worry about is this going to be like Arms or 1-2 Switch, where it's a one and done or forgotten about? I think this has, no pun intended, more legs to it.
Yes.
There is more to this. Arms was just, hey, like it was like the Wii. It's like this waggle around and show off this waggle. That's all it was. There's strategy involved. So
Yeah.
I can see there being more to this. And again, like you said, Mike, there's more you could do in this style.
Yeah.
Like,
and then
this is just
also
the first. You could do skiing. You could do a skating game. You could do a lot of things.
I mean, just the mouse controls in general open up versatility in terms of gaming. Like, again, with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, you can use mouse controls, which is great for FPSs. If anyone that plays on PC knows that playing on a mouse and keyboard is great for FPS in terms of precision.
Which it never struck me as that, but then again, I grew up on a controller. Like, I'm an N64 baby, and even when I have played FPS on keyboard and mouse, it feels so fucking awkward. But then again, I'm not a Counter-Strike pro, so.
Well, how about this, Mike?
But
real-time strategy.
You're not necessarily you're also not necessarily a sniper player.
Yeah, no, I'm a run and gun sort of guy.
Yeah, for games like Sniper Elite, it's going to be great.
Yeah, as a sniper player, I love mouse and keyboard.
Oh yeah, so you're that asshole at Fortnite who is really good at fucking building and sniping.
But like games like 4X games like Civ and stuff like real-time strategy stuff like Tempest Rising and that coming out.
You know what would be great? And I just thought about this just now. This, because of the mouse functionality, it opens up ports for whole new ideas. If you want to blow me the fuck away, you port Baldur's Gate 3, you port the entire StarCraft collection. Those would fucking sell.
It opens up Western computer style RPGs. It opens up strategy games. It opens up those like Civ style games. It also opens up more options for point and click adventures to bring back some classic like Scum games. It also like think about this, Mike, like, you know, Mario Paint. There's no way they're not doing another Mario Paint for this. It's such a lost opportunity if they don't. It opens up stuff like that. And beyond that, even there is the thought of, well, what else can we do? How about Mario Maker, where you can really shape the world in 3D? Think about a 3D Mario Maker, where you're given...
Mario Maker 2 made so much money for... 1 and 2 made so much money for Nintendo, so they're probably in the works.
What about instead of Mario Maker 3, it's 3D Mario Maker, and you're given a sandbox that you can draw and raise and build platformer, like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff, man.
Yeah. There is one last thing that I want to point out and gripe about, is that a lot of media outlets have been putting this out. There are game key cards.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that is already a thing on Nintendo Switch. However, now they have a actual indicator of what they are on the box, like very obviously on the box, not the, oh, you need an internet connection and some of it's downloaded, some of it isn't. No, none of that bullshit. It's just the license on the cart, and you have to download the whole game. I think that is what Nintendo is forcing a lot of people to do. You're going to see that happen with all the 2K releases, for sure, because 2K is cheap.
As of this recording, they have confirmed, though, It's not like what a lot of the previous ones were, where people were confusing it with where you got the box and it just came with a code that you download.
Right.
This is something you can still trade in, sell, give away. You give somebody the card. They put it into their system. It downloads. You will not be able to play that game in your console until you put the cart back in.
Right.
So it does mean that there is still a reason to physically own it. The only issue becomes for longevity when they eventually shut down the servers, you will not be able to play the game.
Yes.
So you can complain about that, but you don't confuse it with just a game code, and also don't confuse it with one where some of the base game is there. You're right. It is basically just a physical key that says, yes, you can play this digital game.
It's just the license on the card.
Yeah. We'll see how many things use that, but hopefully it's not too many, but it's probably going to be
I still think 2K is probably one of the only people that are going to really use it on a consistent basis.
Expect it'll be for EA as well for their sports titles.
Yes.
It'll be EA sports titles. It'll be that. Don't be surprised if Microsoft does it for Activision's Call of Duty.
Oh yeah, no. That's a title that's just like, again, even on normal consoles, they've done a lot of good work at shrinking the size of those games, but it's still outrageously stupid.
Yeah. And we have to also see what Grand Theft Auto is going to be like, because they already said that they're going to be making it for Nintendo's next console, right?
Oh yeah, no. That'll be over a year out anyway. Even if it comes out even if GTA 6 comes out this year, which I doubt it, it'll be another year before it even comes to Switch 2.
Yeah, very likely. We'll see what happens, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like we can go down the rabbit hole of pricing of that, but it's so fluid, we don't really know.
Yeah.
Just know that fans are kind of frustrated.
This information could literally be outdated by the time this episode's posted, which is something I never thought. In the gaming media, things change at a reasonable pace. I wouldn't say rapid, but reasonable. But with everything that's happening with, I'll call it the troubles in the United States, we literally don't know. Like, as I mentioned off the top of the show, we don't know what's happening with pre-orders in Canada. We have some theories about stuff, but we're not going to speculate here on the air. But it basically, we don't know what's going to happen. The software is oddly the most stable thing we can talk about right now. Because a lot of these games are probably getting pretty close to gold if they're not already done already. I'm hoping that list that you and Ken mentioned about games that have known issues, I'm hoping between now and June 5th, a lot of those issues will be resolved. If not by, say, September, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there is reasons to get excited about this, but there was speculation on Inside Gaming, which is a lot of the former guys from like Machinima and Rooster Teeth, all those type of guys, and they were saying Nintendo may be forced to do a price drop on something like this if not enough people buy it. And you look at the example of the 3DS in the Ambassador program, because the 3DS had really low launch numbers, and then anybody who was really cool about it, maybe that's not the right phrasing, and me, we got bonus games to say, hey, you were one of our first adopters, have something awesome, thank you for supporting Nintendo,
and
blah,
those
blah, blah.
games never saw the light of day anywhere. Yeah,
like I was so happy to get those, and then I lost that console. But Nintendo was really cool about it because it was attached to my Nintendo account. They let me download them on my new 3DS. So I was like, all right, you didn't have to do that, but you did. So cool.
Basically, they're trying to also avoid a PS3 launch situation where the console was basically dead for the first year and a half until they did their first price drop.
Yeah, like this is what's going to happen in the next 6 months is going to be very telling for Nintendo. Like, how do they absorb costs? How do they manage things? Like, we had a private chat, and I'm only going to give you a very high-level summary of what happened. And I said, this is a crisis comms PR thing that I have not seen in literally 10 plus years. And I would be very
This-
surprised if something doesn't happen between now and launch day. And now something has happened with launches being delayed. So, like I said, it's going to be a very interesting market.
The last time we saw something like this, and I honestly don't even know if it was as bad as this, because this is more of a global issue beyond just the console, was when Don Matrix said, well, if you don't have any type of connectivity, we have a console for you. That's the Xbox 360. That snarky cynicism cost Xbox 11 years, 12 years of
Xbox still hasn't recovered from that.
And it was literally one comment. It was one comment beyond just poor choices that basically lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for them. And that disaster, the turmoil that happened at Microsoft after that weekend, is sort of where we are here. The only difference is here, this is a situation completely outside of their making. There is some issues with Nintendo of Japan deciding to make things that I think the vast majority of people would assume should have been a pack-in, a paid item, or raising prices by $10 beyond the fact that they already raised prices by $10 for the first time, like last year or the year before. Those are arguable. That's sort of market trending stuff. But the situation that they're in when it comes to pre-orders and console pricing is far beyond their control. So it's a little bit like apples to oranges. But you're right, Mike. This is probably the first time, literally in 12, 13 years, we've encountered something like this.
This is going to be put in the video game history books.
Yeah, like I want this to have a happy ending. I have my doubts, if I'm going to be quite transparent about it, but we'll see. I mean, ultimately, as Alex said, the world's on fire. Everybody needs a little something, and yes, a video game console is considered a luxury in a lot of ways, but it's also a way for people to escape from the horrors of reality that never seem to stop. So I would like to play some Mario Kart.
And build a community with your friends. That's the important part.
Yeah, like I want to be able to play.
I think this is the core idea of the Switch 2 is to build that community, because it did happen with Switch 1, but I think from the get-go of building Switch 2, they wanted that to be a key message for Switch 2.
They want to bring back, and you can tell, like, Switch 1, there's a lot of multiplayer, but there wasn't as much buzz about multiplayer, either couch co-op or online, as there was with the Wii. This feels like they're trying to channel that feeling we had when the Wii came out and everybody was getting together to play together again.
Yeah. And that helps with the game share, which we didn't even talk about. They brought back DS download play. That's exactly what it is.
DS download play, online chat. There is a pretty robust parental controls. Kids can't communicate with anybody that aren't on their family list or on their friend list that their parents have to approve to even add as friends. A lot of cool stuff when it comes to making sure your kids are safe. And for those of us that are adults, we don't have to worry about randomly chatting with randos that we don't want to talk to. We'll see how all that works. We'll test it out when we get our hands on it. But I think that's pretty much it to wrap up. It's everything that we know now that we can concretely say we have opinions on.
There we go. So, Alex, I think you mentioned we have some programming notes for the next little while, just because things are starting to ramp up for us.
Yeah, we're going to be having a few review shows come out over the next few days into the next week or so. We aren't 100% sure if we're doing a regular show this coming week, but we will have programming involved. We've got Earth vs. Soups in the works. We've got a bunch of our previous shows that we've recorded ahead of time that are coming out. Not 100% sure how things are working, but I know that you had said, Birdman, that we're going to take Easter off. We're going to have something out in its place. Maybe we'll put a Sunday Funnies or something out on Easter Sunday
Let's say, yeah, because like I've pre-recorded a couple of Loose Cannons, our new show, Random Access Memory. I've recorded with like Ken and Adam and Dave and stuff like that. I guess as a programming note, please be sure to go check out the interview I did yesterday with Thomas Hairstrom from Free League Publishing involving the Aliens RPG Evolved Edition. That Kickstarter is live until April 17th. I have a couple more RPG interviews coming up in the next few weeks. I should be talking with a actual paleontologist who's putting out a book about dinosaurs. Their Kickstarter just ended. But I'm also going to be chatting with some people from a rather unique Dungeons & Dragons setting that is compatible with 5e, and you can actually buy the books on D&D Beyond right now. I'm just trying to firm up some details, so maybe we'll be talking about some Humblewood in the future. So stay tuned for that over the next couple weeks.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it, buddy, right?
Yeah.
Send us home.
Yeah, all right there, guys. So that's going to do it for us here at The Prototype. So for The Prototype, we have been
Alex, the producer.
Ken from this anime.
And I've been Mike the Birdman saying, well, try keeping it locked to social media because Pretos could go live. Who knows?
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.